for that matter, anytime the mayor is going to address the city, we'll provide that for you. In the meantime, though, Harvey Kushner, a terrorism expert, is joining us now on the phone. Mr. Kushner?
I'm here.
Good morning. Immediately, we've been reporting, the question that comes to mind, because we've been reporting this morning, that perhaps this plan that we saw unfurl on Tuesday may have been 5 years in the making.
You know, let me take you back a little further. Why don't we look at it 15 years in the making? The infrastructure that was able to pull this off was set up here back around 85. And it's similar to what happened at the World Trade Center. And certainly, you know, the things that happened in Saudi Arabia, USS Cole, and the East Africa embassy bombings. But these particular crews, these particular groups that were involved in this particular hijacking clearly probably came into the country possibly a year or two ago or even 5 years ago, but the support system, the very support system from economic to spiritual to, you know, covers, safe houses, that's been here 15 or more years. So this operation was, you know, could be pulled off. It's a very intricate thing what they do. They have these different cells that have different, you know, jobs to do. Raise the money, have the logistical support, and there's, you know, very little communication sometimes between them. But then when they're ready to do it, and the crew is really brought in this particular case, the ones that fly the planes, that's when it happens. But unfortunately, you know, this is like an earthquake. You got to expect a lot of tremors to occur. Tremors that are going to be unearthed by law enforcement, as well as some suicide bombers and others who are probably here right now and going to just ratchet up some other activity. I mean, I don't want to, you know, spread fear, but unfortunately, we live in a bad neighborhood, and the neighborhood is exploding, and no pun intended. So, yes, the answer to your question is it could go back 5 years, but I've been looking at this much longer and been saying that these crews are here now.
How surprised were you at the plot that was taken out and was successful?
Not surprised at all.
Not at all?
No, you know, I've been on record talking about things like this for the last couple of years, that bin Laden has targeted us, and he never does the same operation twice. He always ratchets up his actions. He went from truck bombs to blowing an American Navy vessel almost out of the water. I mean, so what makes Americans think that they wouldn't target the Trade Center again? You know, let me just, the chilling words of Ramzi Yousef as the two marshals brought him back from Pakistan to stand trial in the United States for trying to topple the towers. As he passed by, he said, if I only had a little more time and a little more money, I would have taken them down. So, I mean, you know, what do you say to that?
Boy, you have a point there, yeah.
What is the American response to be then?
Exactly. How do you go after these guys?
It's clear. It's clear in my mind. It always was clear. Let's make no mistake about it. There is state sponsorship of Osama bin Laden in the name of Afghanistan. I can think of no other nation that gives him cover, money, logistics, than the Taliban government. I mean, you know, some people are saying in order to declare an act of war, it has to be state involvement. Well, there's a new warfare that we're going to face in the 21st century, but there is also an organized state effort by Afghanistan, and quite frankly, the Iranians, the Iraqis, the Libyans, the Sudanese, all have their hands in one way or another on this, because that terror network is around the world, and they communicate with each other by satellite, by internet, but you know what? They also communicate right here in the United States. Make no mistake about it. These plots are not only hatched in caves in Afghanistan, but they're hatched here in New York City, in Los Angeles, Chicago, in parts of Florida, and out in L.A.
And possibly in Boston as well, where we are.
Well, obviously. Yeah, I mean, that was the weak link in this particular event. You know, if you want to get into the security, the non-security at Logan Airport, that's another issue.
So you're saying that for America to respond at all, it would have to be with extreme force, targeting all of the countries that you had mentioned, in particular Afghanistan?
Absolutely, and it has to be extreme but sustained force. After all, every American has seen pictures of Osama bin Laden. After all, two networks were in there interviewing the guy. If they could get in, don't you find it bizarre that American military forces can't get in? And, you know, if you look at the pictures of Afghanistan, it's in rubble. I mean, you're dealing with a civilization that has destroyed over the past year monumental statues of significance in history of art, you know, and they had no trepidations about doing that. You know, one analyst the other day said, blow them back to the Stone Age. They already live in the Stone Age. That's the problem we're dealing with. But, you know,
and finding Osama bin Laden, too, Mr. Kushner, is very difficult. He travels all the time.
That's true, and he changes. But, you know, there's been talk that we neglected our human intelligence on the ground. But, you know, there's nobody that big that the United States can't put enough of a price on, enough pressure internationally that we can't get to him. We're going to have to use methods that are anathema, accursed to what Americans believe in. And that means assassination, that means covert operations. But, you know, when you're fighting a war, you must take the head of the enemy off. And I want people to remember what they've seen on 9/11 and understand that the next event will contain a biological or a chemical element or, God forbid, a nuclear package. And think of the disaster we would be facing today if we were hit with something like that. Remember, Ramzi Youssef used cyanide gas canisters when he tried to blow up the towers the first time. We were fortunate because the heat of explosion evaporated the cyanide. What makes you think individuals who are trained and give their life to fly into a building in Midtown Manhattan and topple it wouldn't think twice using a biological or chemical weapon if they could deliver it?
Mr. Kushner, if we, as a country, were to follow your recommendation and, as you had said, try to cut off the head of that snake, Americans certainly would be at an incredible risk of rabble-rousing any of those factions and fractured groups throughout the U.S. So we open ourselves up then for God knows what.
That's the big problem. But we're faced with that problem. There is no denying that that is a consideration. But on the other hand, would we want to be in a situation now where we're going to start seeing individuals strap 40 pounds of explosives around themselves, put themselves in Penn Station, and ignite themselves? I mean, we had an indication of this, and I warned authorities back in '97 when two individuals crossed the Canadian border into New York City, if you recall, Abu Mazer and Lali Khalif, and they, what tensions were to blow up themselves in the subway system of New York. I mean, you remember that.
Yeah.
And that was an indication that that type of thinking was being used as a weapon here in the United States. Well, you know, the stench of Osama bin Laden's rhetoric against the United States over the last few years, both inside and outside this country, has been increasing to the point of a crescendo that radar screens of people who study this and who look at, you know, the terrorism field knew something big was on foot. Al-Quds, the newspaper of that part of the world, was telegraphing that something is going to happen.
Very interesting perspective, Mr. Kushner. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you.
Terrorism expert Harvey Kushner.
Just wanted to run through, you know, he was saying that if each incident, Osama bin Laden increases his power, increases his terror. Just 6 of them have been happening since the World Trade Center. We all know about the World Trade Center. November 13th, these are incidents that Osama bin Laden is accused of playing some role. 95, that car bomb in Saudi Arabia killed 5 American servicemen. June 25th, 96, car bomb in Saudi Arabia shatters an apartment complex housing U.S. servicemen, killing at least 19, wounding 400. August 7th of 98, the bombing at the U.S. embassies in Kenya and Tanzania. Jordanian intelligence uncovers a plot to attack the U.S. installations during Millennium celebrations in December of '99. Sometimes we forget about that one. And then, of course, October 12th, 2000, that suicide bomb of the USS Cole in the Yemeni port of Aden killed 17 sailors, injured 39 others. These are all attacks that Osama bin Laden is accused of playing a role in. And Harvey Kushner saying some rather unsettling words, but something we all have to wake up and be aware of.
Issues that are certainly going to be addressed by the federal government here shortly.